and good afternoon and welcome to the Cabinet meeting. As usual, this is being broadcast live via the County Council's website and will be archived so you can view it afterwards. This meeting is being held in person, but we're limiting the number of people here in the committee room in order to enable us to keep a sensible distance apart. The leader, Nick Rushton, is joining us virtually and will therefore not vote on any items. I will chair the meeting on his behalf. Would everyone please remember to switch their microphones on before they speak and turn it off when they finish speaking. Apologies for absence. We have no apologies. Minutes, pages 5 to 18. I move that the minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of November are taken as read, confirmed and signed. Is that agreed? Item 2, urgent items. We have no urgent items. Does anyone have any interest in respect of items on the agenda? I need to declare a personal interest in item 9, the National Highways Route Strategy Development, as a member of Charnwood Borough Council. Ozzy.
Thank you. Item 7 and 9 as a member of Hinckley and Bosworth Borough Council.
Richard.
Thank you. Item 9 as a member of Charnwood Borough Council.
Lee.
Item 7, a personal interest as a member of Blaby District Council.
Christine.
Item 9 as a member of Charnwood Borough Council.
Louise. Thank you. Okay, on to item 4, the medium-term financial strategy 2022 to 23 to 2025-26 proposal for consultation, pages 11 to 12 and supplementary pages 3 to 16. The first report today sets out the Council's proposed medium-term financial strategy. I refer everyone to the supplementary report which was circulated last week. The proposals will be considered by the overview and scrutiny bodies in January alongside a public consultation before they go on our website, and please let us have your comments on there. Chris Tambini, the Director of Corporate Resources, and Declan Keegan, Assistant Director of Financial Strategy, Property and Commissioning, will present the result, and then I'll ask Liz, the Cabinet Member for Resources, to speak. So over to you, Chris and Declan.
Thank you, Chair. Although service demand has long since replaced government cuts as a principal pressure, setting budgets is as challenging now as it was back in 2009-10. This pressure has been exacerbated by the impact of the COVID pandemic and pressures further compounded by high levels of inflation. The budget includes growth of £88 million to meet extra demand on our services. Adult social care has seen a particularly sharp increase, with £26 million needed next year alone, driven by earlier hospital discharges required in response to the pandemic. The number of children in care continues to grow by around 8% per annum. Over the next 4 years, this is expected to increase costs by £25 million. On top of the growth, there are inflationary pressures of £69 million, adding to the cost of all services and capital projects. The national living wage will increase by over 6% in April, and general inflation will not be far behind. The capital programme continues to grow and has now reached £514 million for the MTFS period. The largest proportion of the programme is investment in Leicestershire infrastructure to support housing growth. Although we look to maximise government grants and developer contributions, £160 million of borrowing will be needed to fund the programme. There are some more positive points on council funding. Council tax receipts held up far better than expected through the pandemic, and our base is expected to grow. The spending review had a better funding allocation than expected next year, although there is no recognition of demand and cost pressures after that. Significant savings will be required every year of our 4-year MTFS, and £54 million has been identified. £40 million of the savings impact our core services, and £14 million is to try and bring expenditure on special education needs support back in line with the Department of Education grant. Most of the savings identified target improved efficiency or generation of income. This doesn't make them any easier to deliver, but it does reduce the impact on Leicestershire's residents. However, even with these savings, there is a £46 million gap by the 4th year of the MTFS. It is inevitable that further savings will be needed to be identified to keep the balance in the budget. The impact upon services will depend upon whether the government provides more support. There are several major risks to the delivery of the MTFS. None of the major grants have been confirmed at this stage. Service demand is only ever an estimate and influenced by numerous external factors. Even if inflation is brought under control, the measures to achieve this could hurt us financially. and numerous reforms are proposed by government, such as the cap on the cost of adult social care, we are counting on these being cost neutral at this stage. This is a very challenging MTFS, but with some difficult savings and some major risks to delivery. But we do have an excellent track record of delivery that will keep us out of the crisis positions some other authorities find themselves in. The recommendations are set out in the order paper, including a new one relating to potential new NHS funding for the remainder of this financial year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Declan. Lee?
Thank you, Chairman. Unfortunately, we are in the unenviable position of needing to increase council tax at a time when households are facing other cost of living pressures. The budget assumes a 3% increase next year, the maximum permissible by government. Although the increase is below the rate of inflation, it was not an easy recommendation to make. As always, our position is not helped by our low funding. Funding reform is required to break the cycle of service demand and cost pressure being funded by maximum council tax increases and savings. There is no doubt nationally that the current funding system is a key cause for council tax increasing at the rate it has over the last few years. We need funding reform and we will continue to campaign along with our MPs. As Cabinet colleagues know, we have put forward proposals for a funding floor and established the F20 group of low-funded local authorities that is cross-party, as it is high time that this postcode lottery is ended. The rumoured one-year settlement offers some hope that reform is indeed being considered and confirms this council's approach of continuing to offer pragmatic solutions to government and press for reform. The key messages from this year's MTFS are that the autumn spending review had a better funding allocation for councils for next year than expected, but then after next year, no recognition of demand and cost pressures are included. Adult and children's social care spending is placing huge and ever-increasing pressures on budgets from both increased demand and increased cost of provision. SEND funding continues to be insufficient and represents one of this council's biggest financial risks despite investing in local provision to tackle costs. We are not in crisis position like some other authorities, and no knee-jerk emergency measures are needed due to our careful management and early savings. Significant uncertainty remains around the future, with the lingering impact of COVID-19 on the national and county economy. The cost of living crisis and inflation affects this council too, with costs of services and large capital schemes rising. If I just make a note of the key figures at a glance in this MTFS, we do propose a 2% basic council tax rise and 1% for adult social care. This will cost residents an extra £1.20 per month for Band D. We have £100 million to save by 25-26, with 46 million still left to identify. And as Declan mentioned, we have a £514 million four-year capital scheme for transport, housing and schools infrastructure. Declan's already said that this is a tough budget. There are, however, some positive aspects, including a commitment to 700,000 trees pledge. We will work with partners where possible, and we already have a £200,000 treescape funding. We're investing £100,000 to develop nurseries to achieve this. Highway spend, we've allocated another £11 million and aims to invest in the current network for maintenance and new safety schemes, and also our commitment to moving to carbon neutral. I therefore urge residents of Leicestershire to now have their say on the MTFS through the 8-week consultation process once this report is approved by this Cabinet meeting. Chairman, I'm happy to propose the recommendations A to E on the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Lou. Richard?
Thank you, Chairman. I second that. Declan and Lee made the points that need to be made. I won't repeat them. All I will say is how important it is, in my view, that we make those points widely known. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got one speaker at the moment. Leader?
Thank you, Deborah. Can I first of all thank Lee and Richard for their diligent amount of work they've done on this MTFS, and of course thank Declan and his team down there. As Lee said in his very detailed speech, a 3% increase is pretty tough for us, really. We don't, we're a Conservative administration, and ideally we'd like to have gone for zero, because as Lee said, things have been very, 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 very tough for residents of Leicestershire. But we've also got to recognise that in this budget, and due to COVID, we've got some significant financial challenges, not least in adult social care and in your department, Deborah, children's social care. And if we're to honour our manifesto commitment that we will always protect the vulnerable, we have to go with the 3% to protect the vulnerable, because some of these people look to us to stay alive almost, or to be protected from harm in your department, Deborah. So reluctantly, I'm happy to go with the 3%. As everybody said, we've got an excellent track record of delivering on our MTFS, and it will require even this some savings to be made, but I'm confident we can do them. On the positive side, I'm very happy that we're finding £28 million as one-off money for highway maintenance, because as we all know, that is the thing, more even than the very vulnerable adults and children's items, that is the thing that fills our post bag. So I'm very happy we can find some money for road maintenance. And of course, another manifesto commitment being honoured with money is our dedication to planting these 700,000 trees. And I think the tree nursery will be, tree nurseries, in fact, will be a very exciting way to honour our manifesto commitment. And then finally, Deborah, this morning I have received a letter from Kemi Badenoch, the minister in whatever we call it now, something levelling up and communities, which I will forward on to you and the chief after this meeting. So thank you very much, Deborah. Although I can't vote, I fully support the recommendations.
Thank you, Leader. Are there any other speakers? Okay, just to echo your words, Nick, you know, that thanks to our hardworking officers and to Lee and Richard, without that we'd be in a lot worse position. So we need to put on record our thanks for their hard work to achieve a balanced budget in the current times. Next year it is really, really great for us. I think it just highlights the commitment we've got to our vulnerable residents, and as the leader said there about our manifesto commitments and our tree planting. But it's really important that our F20 campaign to lift our level baseline funding is just hugely important for this council and for the residents of Leicestershire. So we promise them we'll battle as hard as we can to make sure that our funding is adequate to do all the things that we need to do for our residents. So I'll put it to the vote. It's been proposed by Lee and seconded by Richard. Are we all in favour? Thank you very much. Thank you, Declan. Okay, we'll move on to item 5, the provision of in-house community life choices services, the day services. So this concerns the outcome of the Community Life Choices Framework procurement and the consultation on proposed changes to the provision of the in-house CLC services, and make recommendations for a proposed way forward. We have received a petition titled Save Roman Way Community Centre, which has over 800 signatures. A copy of the comments some individuals have left when signing the petition is attached to the order paper marked 5A. We've also received comments from County Council and Mr Barry Champion, which are attached to the order paper marked 5B. John Wilson, the Director for Adults and Communities, will present the report. Over to you, John.
Thank you. Cabinet approved a proposal in June of this year to commence a procurement on the Community Life Choices Framework and to commence a consultation on proposals to reduce council-operated CLC services and to support existing users of those services to seek alternative providers. The procurement of the new framework completed in September, and the new framework of provision is now in place. The purpose of the framework is to provide people with emotional, physical and social support during the day, and to provide families and carers with respite services. There are over 900 people currently using services provided through the framework, either through a personal budget managed by the council or through a direct payment to the person. There are 27 organisations on the new framework, including 8 new providers, able to provide a range of support needs as outlined in paragraph 17 of today's report. Officers have been in contact with all the providers to discuss their current and future capacity. Providers have expressed an interest in expanding their provision, although they recognise, and the council acknowledges, that to do so will require further work to identify suitable locations and to ensure appropriate staffing and other resources are in place. The council will work with providers to ensure this is the case. I'd like to ask Heather Pick now to take Cabinet members through the outcome of the consultation on in-house provision. But before doing so, can I also note that the Adults and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee have received reports on the consultation, and their comments are noted at paragraphs 58 and 59 of the report. And I'm also aware, as you noted, Chair, that a petition has been presented to the council in respect to the service provided at Roman Way in Harborough, and the content of that petition is also noted, as are the comments from the local member, Mr. Champion. Heather.
Thank you. I'd like to just refer you to paragraphs in the report that relate to the in-house provision, which is the council provision directly provided. In paragraph 21, we outline the pre and post-COVID service user numbers. Currently, we have 77 service users who are registered with our services. Some of those are accessing services, some are still reluctant, and some for other reasons are not yet accessing the services. But we do currently have 77 individuals who are registered to the service. This, as John pointed out, is less than 5% of the current overall provision for the council funded services. In 23, we outlined the council's proposals to refocus our in-house services on crisis care, short-term reablement support for carers, and to offer a 7-day availability, all of which is currently very short supply in the market. 28 to 37 does outline the consultation process that we went through in order to get the feedback from people who are impacted by the services. The consultation summaries on in paragraphs 38 to 42 are very clear. We had a total of 288 responses. 79 of those responses were from people directly using the services or carers impacted by the recommendations. We have to acknowledge that the majority of respondents disagreed with our proposals to cease in-house services. They have some very emotional comments that we can see in the consultation responses, and we accept that this is a very worrying time for people around the service provision. There was a perception of lack of provision for people with more complex needs. And indeed, we had some comments about people who in the past had tried alternatives and this had not worked for them. In the report, we do highlight, as John has said previously, the new framework and new procurement, which gives us assurance that the market is now has more capacity and willingness to work with us in the provision for the people should they be able to transfer. We do have some positive responses, and at paragraph 46 they're outlined, and at paragraph 51 again confirmation of the high regard that our services hold in the sector, and nobody is prouder than me of the services that we have delivered. They're of high quality and of good quality, and we'll forever be proud of that. They are expensive, all of our services currently are expensive. But we also have issues as the rest of the sector with recruitment and retention. And we do see a gap in the market for that carer response and crisis response. And people who come new to our service deserve the opportunity to become more independent. And again, we want to make sure that our services are focused on that. The responses also highlight the negative impact on people who are using the services now. They quote, problems with change, inconsistency, etc. And again, we acknowledge that change is difficult for everybody, but change is normal and a normal part of life. And we cannot, in in-house services, always provide the consistency. We have staff turnover, we have sickness absence, and we do have to use agency staff to provide that care. And notwithstanding that, the changes are always difficult, but we obviously will try our best to help that transition and secure appropriate services for people should they be transferring. John also highlighted that we have taken a previous report to scrutiny, and we have taken on board comments from that report into this report and through the consultation feedback. In conclusion, for us, officers of Adults and Communities Department do believe that the direct provision for long-term CLC services should cease, and we should procure those services from the independent sector whilst working with them closely to make sure that they're appropriate, and that our services be focused on short-term reablement and crisis support, and that we can provide alternatives locally in Leicestershire, and will seek to do so with the independent sector. Subject to Cabinet agreement, our remaining service users will have a carefully managed and personalised transition plan into appropriate services going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, John and Heather. And I think, Heather, you just spoke with real passion and care for your service. So that really came across strongly for me. So I hope that did for other people here. I'll go to Christine first.
Thank you, Deborah. Both John and Heather have highlighted the main points in the report, but the public and moreover the service users and their families who utilise our community life choices services today will feel like a loss of vital care. The document before you provides repeated reassurances that not one of our service users will cease enjoying the wide array of day services they currently attend. What allows the council confidence to be able to say this? Throughout the consultation period into the community life choices reconfiguration, we listened to the worries raised by the families of our service users. Alongside this consultation, we have been working to secure the services of many external providers, all of whom have the capacity, personnel and expertise to both manage and deliver high quality daycare to adults with mild to profound disabilities. The process of assigning contract to professionals who will continue this quality daycare of our clients will now commence. Our service users are accustomed to excellent daycare services. Absolutely nothing in that last statement will change. Sentence will change. What will happen is in the event that service users does not have an external provider ready to take over their daycare, the council will provide the day services until they, and indeed every service user, receives the daycare they expect and rightly deserve. Community life choices will continue. I recommend A to D on the order paper. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Louise?
Thank you, Deborah. I'm going to second this. I know it will be very difficult. Change is always difficult, and especially for the service users. But we do need to have a service that is sustainable for those service users. And we do state in the report that no services will be closed until such time as the service user has an alternative service able to meet their needs, and that all service users will be supported through transition. So it's very important we get that message across. So happy to support.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Okay, thank you. I think, as in previous items, we're made aware of the difficult financial situation we're in. So we have to make the best use of the resources that we've got. And I think it's been mentioned quite a few times that change is always difficult to manage, and we're very aware of that. And as been said, we will support our residents through that. We're very lucky to have some independent providers in the area that will be able to offer great service for our residents. And I think we will be supporting our residents as much as we can with these changes. And I hope that people are very reassured by the comments that have been put this afternoon to Cabinet that we will support residents through this change and ensure that those services are robust going forward for the longer future. So are we all happy to, it's been moved by Christine, seconded by Louise. Are we all happy? Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 6, which is the Leicestershire Domestic Abuse Reduction Strategy 2022 to 2024. So this sets out the responses to the consultation to date concerning the Council's draft domestic abuse reduction strategy and seeks the Cabinet approval for the Director of Children and Family Services to finalise the strategy ahead of its publication in early January. The Cabinet is also asked to approve the proposed approach to establish a Domestic Abuse Local Partnership Board, which is required under the Domestic Abuse Act 2021. Jane Moore, the Director of Children and Family Services, will talk us through it. Over to you, Jane.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. So the report in front of you is bringing you the summary of responses we've had so far to the consultation and also the proposed approach around the establishment of the Local Partnership Board for Domestic Abuse. As part of the consultation, the draft strategy was considered by Scrutiny Commission, and I'll pick up the comments from Scrutiny Commission later in this report. And subject to approval, the Director of Children and Family Services, following the consultation with lead member, will finalise the strategy at the close of consultation, ready for it to be published at the beginning of January. In terms of funding, the funding by way of a 3-year grant has been allocated by the Department of Levelling Up and Housing and Communities, and the County Council received around 1.1 million in year 1, and each district council received 33,000. Just by way of background, the Domestic Abuse Act received royal assent in April 2021, and it placed a duty on Tier 1 authorities to provide accommodation-based support to victims of domestic abuse and their children in refuges and other safe accommodation, and also provides clarity over governance and accountability, requiring Tier 2 councils to cooperate with the lead local authority. The County Council is also required to produce a domestic abuse reduction strategy, which sets out that partnership approach to tackling domestic abuse. And to deliver the strategy, a multi-agency domestic abuse local partnership board must also be established. So the DA reduction strategy outlines how the County Council will support victims of domestic abuse, and the strategy has been informed by a needs assessment and will be implemented through use of the funding from DLUC. The draft strategy is attached as the appendix and has 5 priorities. The first one being around early intervention, one around targeted support, reachable services, the safe accommodation and strong partnership, and a delivery plan will be developed to deliver the strategy. An 8-week public consultation did commence on October 26th, and it will close on the 21st of December. And the consultation is seeking views from the public around the draft strategy in order to inform the final strategy. The consultation to date has involved a number of organisations and bodies, and also members of the community. And to date, all of the responses to the consultation have so far agreed with the 5 priorities and the approaches suggested to reduce domestic abuse. In paragraphs 32 to 34, we've detailed the feedback from Scrutiny Commission. The Commission welcomed the allocation of the new funding and supported the proposed approach as set out in that final draft strategy. The Commission did highlight that there were risks around capacity and the fact that the true impact of the pandemic was yet unknown, and therefore the level of demand on services isn't likely to be known for some time, and also identified that sustainability could be a key issue. Further issues raised by the Commission have been included in paragraph 34. In terms of other consultation feedback, whilst the board hasn't yet been established, the proposed membership of the DA local board was consulted, and they all agreed with the 5 priorities and the aims. District councils and other key stakeholders have been consulted. You can see in paragraph 37 that we did indicate that there'd been no response to date. There have now in fact been 15 responses, and all in support of the strategy and priorities. And then we've also consulted with victims and survivors and the By and For organisations, again, both through the consultation, but also through some group work and one-to-one sessions. And again, to date, all have agreed with the 5 priorities and the aims set out in the strategy. The consultation has been promoted widely, and we are intending to do some further communication in order to improve the response rate that we've had so far. You can see in paragraph 41, we've given a summary there of the joint strategic needs assessment that has been included, that details the key points of the needs that have now been included in the strategy. And then finally, in relation to the establishment of the local domestic abuse local partnership board, the Act does require that we have a local partnership board to support the delivery of the strategy and also the action plan. And we've listed in paragraph 44 those who are required representatives on that board, and in paragraph 56 the functions of the board as well. So the proposal is for the local Domestic Abuse Partnership Board to have a similar membership to that of the Safer Community Strategy Board in Leicestershire, with the addition of representatives of housing services, the authentic voice of adult and child victims and survivors, and also voluntary sector services who work with victims of domestic abuse. A report that set out the proposed arrangements was considered by the Safer Community Strategy Board at its meeting on the 10th of December, and they agreed with the new arrangements and worked through a way in which that could work. And in addition to that, a funding and officer group has been established which will be responsible for progressing the priorities agreed by board. So I'll now move, Chair, to the recommendations set out on the order paper A to D. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane, and I'm happy to move this motion. I think it's really important that we work with the victims and families of domestic abuse to assure our services are best they can be and that we have no gaps. So I'm just putting out a plea there to everyone to respond in the final few days of the consultation to let us have your thoughts. We can't do this alone. It's definitely a partnership working with the districts and boroughs and all our community groups out there. So I'll move the motion and I'll hand over to Pam.
Thank you, Deborah. Excuse me. I think this is a very good paper, and I'm pleased to see that we're looking at early intervention and prevention, and also that we're looking at the wider family and the impacts that domestic abuse has, particularly on young people that are part of this. They see this domestic abuse occurring, and unfortunately, sometimes that is carried on into their adult life because they think that that is the right way to behave. So I have no difficulty at all in seconding this proposal.
Thanks, Pam. I've got one speaker, Leader.
Thank you, Deborah. This is exceedingly important. So, I mean, domestic abuse is recognised by the United Nations, it's recognised by the British government, and anyone can be a victim of domestic violence, it goes on to say, regardless of age, race, gender, sexual orientation, faith or class. So even men can suffer from domestic abuse. We're often forgotten, but men do suffer from domestic abuse. People suffer from sexual abuse. People suffer from abuse because of their skin colour. People suffer from abuse online. All these things are a form of domestic abuse. And if you're in that situation, it's incredibly hard to get out of it because you type of think this is your lot in life and put up with it. Well, people should not put up with it. And this sort of strategy really resonates with me. And again, it is part of our manifesto commitment to protect the vulnerable. So although I can't vote, Deborah, I wholeheartedly support the work you're doing in this area.
Thank you, Leader. And it is definitely one of my priorities. A lot of the issues that we get within children's services tend to have a little piece of domestic abuse attached to them. So it's really important that we get into that preventative, as Pam said, to prevent this escalating any further. So I've proposed it. Pam seconded. Are we all in favour? Sorry, Louise.
Sorry, can I just have some confirmation that health is involved in this in some way, because obviously health comes into this as well, just on the partnership board, or is there another board above it or below it that feeds in? Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, I'll answer and I'll hand over to Gurjit, who can talk through the list that we've got at paragraph 44 sets out those who are required to be a member of the new board, and you can see at the top, the second to last bullet, it does require representatives from health. So we will ensure that there are health representatives at the board table. Gurjit may want to add around the work to date with health around the engagement with the strategy.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, yes, health are engaged in this work. They are a member of the officer group that Jane mentioned earlier, the DA Act and Funding Group, and then through the strategic arrangements for domestic abuse, health are involved in those. So, for example, one of the priorities will be looking at mental health support, and we're working with health on that. So LPT and with the CCGs, so fully engaged with health. And internally with public health as well.
Thank you, good to hear.
Anyone else for put this back to the vote? Okay, so I've proposed it. Pam seconded it. All in favour? Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 7, the South Leicestershire Local Plan Making Statement of Common Ground. So our next report seeks the Cabinet approval for the County Council to become a signatory to the South Leicestershire Local Plan Making Statement of Common Ground. Simon Lawrence, Head of the Growth Service, will talk us through the report. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you and good afternoon, Chair. This is a short and straightforward report recommending that the County Council is a signatory to the Statement of Common Ground, which has been prepared by Blaby, Harborough and Oby and Wigston Borough Councils with input from Hinckley and Bosworth Borough Council. The Statement of Common Ground as proposed is focused on the gathering and preparation of joint evidence in support of the next round of those districts' local plans. The 2018 National Planning Policy Framework requires local planning authorities to produce statements of common ground to demonstrate cross-border issues. And this is therefore a really positive example of where districts are collaborating on those cross-border issues and will help the County Council in going some way to better understanding some of the financial risks associated with the delivery of infrastructure that ultimately get included and proposed within those local plans. The recommendations are as stated on the Green Order paper.
Thank you, Simon. Nothing further for me to add. It's important we work in partnership with our boroughs and districts to move forward. So I'll move the motion on the order paper. Lee?
Yeah, nothing further to add. Happy to second, Chair.
Any other speakers? Okay, I've moved it. Lee seconded it. All in favour? Thank you. On to item 8, the Leicestershire Municipal Waste Management Strategy Public Consultation on pages 73 to 84. This is a report which proposes an approach to public consultation concerning the review of the Leicestershire Municipal Waste Management Strategy. Anne Carruthers, Director of Environment and Transport, will present the report. Anne.
Good afternoon. The County Council is part of Leicestershire's Waste Partnership, and that's made up of the district authorities as the collecting authorities, ourselves as the disposal authority, and the City Council as an associate member. We're required by government to have a joint municipal waste strategy. The current strategy we have covered the period up to 2020, and while COVID delayed an updated version, we're now seeking approval for a 12-week public consultation as part of the review of the municipal waste strategy for the county. As part of the wider context shaping the new joint municipal waste strategy, in 2018, government issued its resources and waste strategy, which sets out new approaches to waste management. This includes proposals on mandatory food waste collections, deposit return scheme, and extended producer responsibility, which requires those producing packaging to meet the full costs of collection, recycling, disposal of that packaging. The Environment Act, which received royal assent last month, provides that legislative framework to enable those changes. The current review of this joint municipal waste strategy for Leicestershire takes into account those legislative changes, so a very changed environment from when the previous strategy was developed. This report seeks approval for a 12-week public consultation, which would start in January, subject to Cabinet approval. The district authorities, as the collection authorities, are similarly seeking their own approvals for this consultation exercise, which will test the partners' vision, objectives and pledges towards waste collection and disposal in the county area. The consultation will consider a draft headline strategy, which looks out to 2050. It includes a draft options appraisal report and environmental report, and finally a summary document. The key messages for each of those different reports that comprise the consultation are set out in paragraphs 29 to 35 of the report in front of you. Subject to Cabinet approving the consultation, the proposal will be to bring back a further report to Cabinet next summer with the outcome of the consultation and a final strategy for approval. The recommendations are as per the order paper. Thank you.
Thanks. And Blake?
Thank you, Deborah. And just to add to that, this is a strategy that is mandated by government, and I've actually joined some of the online scoping sessions in my capacity as lead member for this particular area of business here at County Hall. And Leicestershire County Council, as ever, has hosted these sessions, but for the benefit of all of the partners, all of the district collection authorities that we have to work with. I'm pleased to say that my observations are that we've had some very cooperative, harmonious working with our district council colleagues, and the strategy, in no small part, as the director has just said, is mandated by changes within the Environment Act, which are welcomed in my view, bringing in weekly food waste collections, but of course this changes quite fundamentally most of the arrangements that a lot of the Borough and District Council as collection authorities currently have. So whilst we respect that the Borough and District Council partners have a job to do, they are the collection authority, we of course have to dispose of Leicestershire's waste, so we have an equally important role here, and by coordinating and working together on this strategy, I feel that we'll have a very good blueprint to move forward on to the future. Thank you. I move the motion on the order paper. Thank you.
Thanks, Blake. Ozzy?
Thank you. I second. I have nothing to add. Thank you.
I think it's key that this is, we highlight this as a partnership. It's not just Leicestershire County Council, as you say, that the districts and the boroughs are the collecting, but we have to get rid of the waste. So it's a true partnership, and we will have to work together to ensure that this goes ahead. So Blake's moved it, Ozzy seconded it. Are we all happy to approve? Thank you very much. OK, we'll move on to item 9, the National Highways Route Strategies Development, pages 85 to 108. So our final report advises the Cabinet of the National Highways proposed route strategies development process and seeks approval for a response to be submitted as the views of the County Council. We've received comments from Max Hunt, the leader of the Labour group, and these are attached to the order paper marked 9. And we're back over to Anne to take us through this report.
Thank you again. National Highways are responsible for the strategic road network, and as you've just mentioned, Chair, they're currently seeking input into the route strategy work. That considers the future development of the key routes on their network and helps to inform their future investment programme. And most immediately, they're looking to develop their strategy for the period 2025 to 30. As many of you may be aware, National Highways receive 5-year funding allocations from government. The first one, which they named RIS1, their route investment strategy, their first route investment strategy totaled 17 billion. The second one, which is we're currently in, the RIS2 period, they have 27 billion. Therefore, not insubstantial amounts of money for investment on the strategic road network. Despite that investment, however, it's highly likely that RIS3, which, as I say, runs from 2025 to 2030, will be oversubscribed between both carryover from schemes from the RIS2 period and new investment requirements. Therefore, it's important that we submit robust comments and also work through Midlands Connect, our subnational transport body, giving added weight to our position in influencing that future work and investment in strategic road network. A summary of the proposed response to National Highways is given at paragraph 32 of the report. Key corridors of concern in our area are the M1, the A5 and the A46. The issue of local plan growth, which National Highways current processes does not fully take into account, it will be raised in the response, as well as the impact of the Freeport on the strategic road network and what might be required in order to support that. Another key point that will be made is the need for a more coordinated approach to planning and investment across both the strategic road network, the major road network and the local road network for which we are responsible for. We also propose to set out what the strategic road network needs to look like to deal with growth, the growth agenda in the county to 2050. As you'll appreciate, we have a strategic growth plan covering the county, and that helps us formulate that view and feed into the likes of this consultation. We'll also emphasise the need to address air quality issues and the challenge of decarbonisation when they're thinking about the investment in the road network. As the Chair has outlined, we've had comments submitted from Mr Hunt on behalf of the Labour group. The proposed response, if I consider those comments that have been put forward, the response as we propose to National Highways includes asks that we go some way to address Mr Hunt's points on traffic generation. And we specifically include asks on active travel and sustainable travel modes within national highway schemes, as well as requesting revisions around the scheme appraisal process. On the environmental implications that are raised, the proposed response requests that any national highways investment should deliver positive environmental benefits. And on the matter of air quality and noise, if Cabinet is supportive, we suggest an additional ask to what is appended to the report in front of you of requesting national highways improving their pollution monitoring across air quality and noise across the strategic road network and the schemes they are seeking to implement on that, as well as more extensive monitoring, both through existing and new projects. The report seeks approval to submit the full response, which is appended to the report, with that revision around air quality and noise pollution, if the Cabinet is accepting of that. The recommendations are on the order paper. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, and Ozzy.
Thank you. I think we'll all agree that Anna's gave a detailed reply to the paper. I would like to put on my record my sincere thanks to the officers for their hard work and detailed recommendations that they've put forward to be submitted to the National Highways Route Strategies Development. This is why it's most important that we all work with the districts together to actually formulate our strategic plans when we are putting forward development on our routes. And I would like, as I say, I would like to thank officers for the detailed response they've put. Thank you. And I move that item.
Thanks, Lee.
Yeah, happy to second, Chair. Nothing to add. Thank you.
One speaker, Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Deborah. I serve on Midlands Connect as the county leader, and it is exceedingly important that we are represented there, and that we are quite forceful with them to make sure that we do get the investment in the major routes in Leicestershire. As we all know, the bit of the M1 that goes through Leicestershire is absolutely jam-packed, especially as you go up nearby by the service station. In the A5, we've got one of the most congested, and in my view, I've driven it, dangerous bits of road as a main arterial road in the country. And that's without mentioning that blessed bridge, which is way, way too low. And then you go to the A46, and the Hobby Horse roundabout must be the most complicated roundabout that I ever use. So, you know, we do need to make sure that we lobby for money for those three major roads. And then to cap it all in Leicestershire, we've now got the Freeport. OK, part of it's in Leicestershire, up in my area around the airport, but just across the border at the old power station is another huge bit of the Freeport. And again, the M1, A50, M42, A453 roundabout out there is actually, I think, the busiest roundabout in the country before we start putting Freeport and any additional growth in there. So we do need to be represented. Leicestershire's growth is massive, I think, over the next few years. So we need the investment, and also we need to concentrate, I think, on decarbonisation. And also I want to support really what Max said. You know, air quality, pollution and noise are major concerns to our residents. So although, again, I can't move or second or vote on anything, I do support the additional paragraph that I think Anne suggested goes in about air quality, pollution and noise. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Leader. I think it's really important. We can only do so much to our local roads that we're responsible for, and they're pretty full now without some major investment in the major roads around the county to if we're going to deliver the housing numbers that we've got and the employment opportunities that we need in the area. We need to improve our national roads within the county. So yeah, no, I fully support this. Any other speakers? Okay, moved by Ozzy, seconded by Lee. All in favour? Thank you. Item 10, items referred from Overview and Scrutiny. There are no items referred from the Overview and Scrutiny committees. Item 11, any urgent items? We have no urgent items. So that concludes the meeting for today. Thank you very much, and a happy Christmas to you all. Thank you.